Simone's hands trembled as she held her phone to her ear, her mother's neighbor's frantic voice cutting through the silence of the estate's grand hallway. Your mother collapsed. The ambulance is here. They're saying her heart. Simone, they're saying she needs medication right away, but it costs thousands of dollars. The phone nearly slipped from Simone's grip. She'd been cleaning the library at Julian Reed's estate, the same job she'd held for 3 months, the same routine that paid just enough to cover rent and groceries but never quite enough to help her mother afford the heart medication she'd been rationing. Now that careful balance had shattered. I'm coming, Simone whispered, but even as she said it, she knew arriving at the hospital meant nothing without money. The prescription her mother needed cost $8,000. $8,000 she didn't have. $8,000 that stood between her mother and survival. She stood frozen in the hallway, mind racing. The hospital was 40 minutes away. Her mother was there right now, struggling to breathe, her heart failing because they couldn't afford the medicine that could save her. The neighbor had said the paramedics were asking about insurance, about payment, about advance directives. Simone's vision blurred. She pressed her palm against the cool wall, trying to steady herself. Then she remembered, Julian Reed was still here. She'd seen his study light on when she passed by earlier. The billionaire who owned this estate rarely stayed up this late, but tonight he'd mentioned working on something important. Her feet moved before her mind caught up. She hurried down the corridor, her cleaning supplies forgotten, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She'd never asked her employer for anything beyond her scheduled paycheck. She'd maintained perfect professional boundaries, never overstepping, never assuming familiarity despite his consistent kindness. But this wasn't about pride anymore. This was about her mother's life. She reached his study door and knocked, the sound seeming too loud in the quiet house. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time, desperation overriding decorum. Come in, Julian's voice called out. Simone pushed the door open. Julian sat behind his desk, papers spread before him, his tie loosened and shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked up, and his expression shifted immediately from focused concentration to concern when he saw her face. Simone, what's wrong? The words tumbled out. Mr. Reed, I'm so sorry to bother you this late. I just got a call. My mother collapsed. She's at County General right now. Her heart, she needs medication immediately. The prescription costs $8,000, and I don't have that kind of money. I know this is inappropriate, and I've never asked for anything before, but I'm begging you. Her voice cracked. Can you buy this medicine? My mother is dying. Julian was already standing, reaching for his jacket. Of course. Let's go. I can pay you back, Simone started, but Julian shook his head. We'll figure that out later. Right now, we need to get to your mother. Come on. Have you ever faced a moment where asking for help was the hardest thing you'd ever done? Drop a comment below and subscribe to see how Simone's desperate request changes everything. Julian's car cut through the empty streets, the city lights blurring past as they raced toward County General. Simone sat in the passenger seat, her phone clutched in both hands, waiting for updates that weren't coming fast enough. Tell me about your mother, Julian said quietly, his eyes on the road but his tone inviting. Simone's throat tightened. Her name is Gloria. She was a nurse for 30 years at St. Mary's Hospital downtown. She worked double shifts to raise me after my father left when I was 3. She put me through community college, made sure I had everything I needed. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. 3 months ago, she had to quit her job. Her heart condition got worse, and she couldn't handle the physical demands anymore. When she left, she lost her insurance. She's been rationing her medication, Simone continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how bad it was until 2 weeks ago. She'd been cutting her pills in half, skipping doses, trying to make them last longer. I've been giving her every extra dollar I have, but it's not enough. The medication she needs costs $1,200 per month, and that's just one of 3 prescriptions. Julian's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, letting her talk. She kept telling me she was fine. She didn't want me to worry. But I knew something was wrong. She's lost weight. She gets tired so easily. Tonight, Her neighbor found her on the kitchen floor, unconscious. Simone's voice broke. If something happens to her because I couldn't afford to keep her alive. Don't go there, Julian said firmly but kindly. We're going to help her. Whatever she needs, we'll make sure she gets it. Simone looked at him through her tears. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. I'm just someone who cleans your house. Julian glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. When I was 22, my mother died from complications of diabetes. She couldn't afford her insulin, so she rationed it. By the time I made enough money to help her, it was too late. I built my company so I'd never feel that helpless again. And so I could help others who are in the same position we were. The car fell silent except for the hum of the engine. Simone felt something shift in her chest, a recognition that this man understood her fear in a way few others could. I'm sorry about your mother, she said softly. So am I, Julian replied. But maybe we can make sure yours has a different story. They pulled into the hospital parking lot 28 minutes after leaving the estate. Simone was out of the car before Julian had fully stopped, running toward the emergency entrance. He followed close behind, his presence steady and reassuring. Inside, the fluorescent lights were harsh and bright. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Simone rushed to the reception desk, giving her mother's name, her voice shaking. The receptionist checked her computer and directed them to the third-floor cardiac unit. The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors finally opened, Simone spotted her mother's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, sitting in the waiting area, her face etched with worry. She's stable for now, Mrs. Patterson said, standing. But the doctors are saying she needs the medication tonight. They've been asking about payment and insurance. Julian stepped forward. I'll handle the payment. Where do I need to go? Dr. Helen Foster met them outside Gloria's room, her expression serious but calm. She was a woman in her mid-40s with kind eyes that had clearly seen too many cases like this. Ms. Patterson, she addressed Simone. Your mother is stable, but her condition is critical. Her heart is severely compromised due to prolonged lack of proper medication. We've given her emergency treatment, but she needs to start on a comprehensive medication regimen immediately. Without it, she's at high risk for another cardiac event within the next 24 to 48 hours. What does she need? Julian asked, stepping beside Simone. Dr. Foster looked between them, then focused on Julian. We're talking about 3 different medications. The primary one is a specialized cardiac medication that costs approximately $8,000 for a month's supply. The other 2 are more standard but still expensive without insurance. Together, the initial prescriptions will cost around $10,000. Simone felt the room tilt. $10,000. The number was so far beyond her reach it might as well have been $1 million. Write the prescriptions, Julian said without hesitation. All of them. And whatever else she needs, add it to the list. Dr. Foster studied him for a moment, then nodded. I'll have them ready in 10 minutes. The hospital pharmacy closes at midnight, but there's a 24-hour pharmacy about 10 minutes from here that can fill specialty prescriptions. Can I see my mother? Simone asked, her voice small. Of course. She's sleeping, but you can sit with her. Simone entered the room slowly. Gloria lay in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, monitors beeping steadily beside her. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile than Simone had ever seen her. She pulled a chair close and took her mother's hand, feeling the familiar warmth, the slight calluses from years of nursing work. I'm here, Mama, she whispered. You're going to be okay. I promise you're going to be okay. Julian stood in the doorway, watching silently. When Dr. Foster returned with the prescriptions, he took them and turned to Simone. I'm going to the pharmacy. I'll be back as soon as possible. Stay with her. Mr. Reed, Simone called out as he turned to leave. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you, but thank you. Just take care of your mother, he said simply, and left. The pharmacy was nearly empty when Julian arrived, the fluorescent lights creating stark shadows. The pharmacist, Tom Rodriguez, was the only person behind the counter. When Julian handed over the prescriptions and his credit card, Tom's eyebrows rose at the total. "This is quite a bill," Tom said carefully. "Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure," Julian replied. "How long will it take to fill these?" "About 30 minutes for all three. The cardiac medication needs to be specially prepared." Julian nodded and took a seat in the waiting area, pulling out his phone. He spent the next half-hour making notes, researching cardiac care facilities, and looking into long-term treatment options. By the time Tom called him back to the counter, Julian had a plan forming. He returned to the hospital with 3 large pharmacy bags. When he walked into Gloria's room, Simone looked up, her eyes red from crying but filled with hope. "I got everything," Julian said, setting the bags on the side table. "And I got a month's supply of each medication, not just the immediate dose. The doctor can start her on them as soon as she's ready." Simone stood, walked over to him, and before she could stop herself, wrapped her arms around him in a brief hug. "Thank you," she said, pulling back quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, that was inappropriate." "It's fine," Julian said gently. "How is she?" "Still sleeping. The doctor said the emergency medication is helping, but she needs to start the regular doses in the morning." Simone looked at the pharmacy bags, then back at Julian. "I meant what I said earlier. I'll pay you back. I'll work extra hours, Julian held up a hand. "Simone, right now, the only thing that matters is your mother's recovery. Everything else, we'll figure out later." "Okay." She nodded, tears spilling over again, but this time they were tears of gratitude mixed with relief. "Okay." Simone woke in the hospital chair, her neck stiff and her back aching. Sunlight streamed through the window, and for a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she saw her mother, awake and looking at her with tired but alert eyes. "Simone," Gloria's voice was weak but steady. "What happened?" Simone moved to the bedside quickly. "You collapsed, Mama. Your heart. You're at County General." Gloria closed her eyes briefly. "The medication. Baby, I'm sorry. I thought I could manage." "Don't apologize," Simone said firmly. "And don't worry about the medication. It's handled. You're going to get everything you need." "How?" Gloria asked, confusion crossing her face. "Sweetheart, we don't have that kind of money." Before Simone could answer, Dr. Foster entered, followed by a nurse. "Good morning, Mrs. Patterson. I'm glad to see you awake. Let's check your vitals and get you started on your new medication regimen." After the doctor finished her examination and left instructions for the nurses, Simone explained everything to her mother. Julian's help, the pharmacy run, the month's supply of medication sitting in the locked cabinet by her bed. Gloria listened, tears streaming down her face. "He did all that for us. A man who barely knows you. He said his mother died because she couldn't afford her medication," Simone explained quietly. "He understands." Gloria reached for Simone's hand. "You thank him properly for me. And Simone, honey, you accept this help. You hear me? Pride doesn't keep people alive. Gratitude and grace do. You accept what he's offering, and you thank God for putting someone like that in our path." Simone nodded, her mother's words settling something inside her that had been twisted with guilt and worry about accepting so much. At 10 that morning, Simone left the hospital, promising to return that evening. Gloria was stable, responding well to the medication, and the doctors were optimistic about her recovery with proper treatment. Simone caught a bus back to the estate, exhausted but lighter than she'd felt in months. When she arrived, Mrs. Catherine Hayes, the elderly housekeeper who'd worked for Julian's family for decades, met her at the door. "Mr. Reed asked to see you in his study when you got back," Mrs. Hayes said kindly. "And dear, I heard about your mother. I'm so glad she's going to be all right." Simone found Julian at his desk, but this time the papers spread before him seemed to be related to medical information and insurance policies. "How is she?" he asked immediately. "Better. Much better. The medication is working, and the doctors say with proper treatment, she should recover well." Simone took a breath. "Mr. Reed, I need to thank you properly. What you did last night, you saved my mother's life. I don't have adequate words for that kind of gratitude." "You don't need to keep thanking me," Julian said, but there was warmth in his voice. "Sit down, please." I want to discuss something with you. Simone sat, nervous about what was coming. Julian leaned back in his chair. I've been up since dawn researching cardiac care and long-term treatment options. Your mother is going to need these medications indefinitely. She'll also need regular doctor visits, potential procedures, monitoring. The costs add up quickly, and I know your insurance situation. I'll figure it out, Simone said quickly. I can get a second job, maybe find something with better insurance. I have a different proposal, Julian interrupted gently. I want to set up a medical trust fund for your mother. It will cover all her medications, doctor visits, procedures, everything she needs. In return, I'd like to hire you for a special project. Simone stared at him. What kind of project? My grandmother passed away 6 months ago. She left me this estate and everything in it. But she was a collector, a saver of memories. There are decades worth of documents, photographs, letters, and personal items that need to be carefully catalogued and organized. It's a massive undertaking. I need someone I can trust, someone with attention to detail and respect for personal history. He met her eyes. I'd like to hire you for this project. The pay would be significantly more than your current housekeeping position, and the work is important to me. Would you be interested? What would you do if someone offered to change your entire life in one conversation? Comment below whether you'd accept this offer, and subscribe to follow Simone's journey. Simone felt her heart race. More money meant she could contribute to her mother's care, maybe even save for the future. But more than that, it meant stability, security, the ability to breathe without constant financial panic. Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, I'd be honored to help with your grandmother's estate. Julian smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Good. We'll start tomorrow. Today, you should go home, get some rest, and spend time with your mother this evening. And Simone, about the trust fund for your mother, I want you to know it's not a loan. It's not something you need to pay back. Consider it an investment in making sure good people get the care they deserve. Simone felt tears well up again, but she smiled through them. My mother told me this morning to accept your help with gratitude and grace. So that's what I'm doing. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Truly, deeply, thank you. Over the next 3 weeks, Simone arrived at the estate each morning, and she and Julian would spend hours in his grandmother's rooms, carefully sorting through a lifetime of memories. The work was meticulous but rewarding. Each box held stories, love letters from Julian's grandfather, photographs from world travels, pressed flowers from gardens long gone, journals filled with elegant handwriting. As they worked, they talked. At first, the conversations were professional, focused on decisions about what to keep, what to donate, what to preserve. But gradually, as the days passed, the walls between employer and employee began to soften. Your grandmother was remarkable, Simone said one afternoon, holding a photograph of a young woman standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. She traveled everywhere. She believed life was meant to be experienced, not just observed, Julian said, looking over her shoulder at the photo. After my grandfather died, everyone expected her to retreat, to live quietly. Instead, she spent the next 20 years seeing the world. She said grief wasn't a reason to stop living. It was a reason to live more intentionally. Simone carefully placed the photo in the preservation pile. My mother used to say something similar. She'd tell me that every day above ground is a gift, and gifts should never be wasted. How is your mother doing? Julian asked. Amazingly well. The medication has made such a difference. She has energy again. She's even talking about doing volunteer work once she's fully recovered. Simone smiled. She wants to help at the community health clinic, using her nursing skills to assist people who can't afford regular care. She sounds like an incredible woman. She is. She's everything I aspire to be. Julian was quiet for a moment, then said, I'd like to meet her, if that would be appropriate. I'd like to see for myself that she's recovering well. Simone looked up, surprised. You'd want to do that? Of course. Her well-being matters to me. Not just because of the trust fund, but because she matters to you. The simplicity of that statement caught Simone off guard. She realized that over these weeks, Julian had become more than just her employer. He'd become someone she looked forward to seeing each day, someone whose opinion she valued, someone who made her laugh with dry observations about his grandmother's penchant for collecting ceramic owls. "She'd like that," Simone said softly. "She asks about you every time I visit. She wants to thank you in person." That Sunday, Julian drove Simone to her mother's small apartment in the modest neighborhood where she'd grown up. Gloria met them at the door, looking healthier than Simone had seen her in months. Her color was good, her breathing easy, her smile bright. "Mr. Reed," Gloria said warmly. "Please, come in. I've been wanting to meet the man who saved my life." Julian entered the neat, modest apartment, immediately putting Gloria at ease with his respectful demeanor. They sat in the small living room, and Gloria served tea she'd prepared specially for the occasion. "I can't adequately express my gratitude," Gloria said, her voice thick with emotion. "You gave me my life back. You gave me more time with my daughter. That's a debt I can never repay." "There's no debt," Julian said gently. "Seeing you healthy and recovering is more than enough. Simone tells me you're planning to volunteer at the community clinic." Gloria's face lit up. "I am. I've been a nurse for most of my life, and sitting idle doesn't suit me. There are so many people in this neighborhood who need medical help but can't afford it. I want to use my skills to serve them." As Julian and Gloria talked, Simone watched them, feeling something warm and grateful settle in her chest. Two people who'd both experienced loss, both understood the value of compassion, both chose to use their resources to help others. Before they left, Julian did something that surprised both women. He'd brought a small package, which he now handed to Gloria. "This was my grandmother's," he said. "She wore it every day for 60 years. I think she'd want someone like you to have it." Gloria opened the box to find a simple gold locket. Inside was a photo of an elderly woman with kind eyes. "I can't accept this," Gloria started, but Julian shook his head. "My grandmother believed that meaningful objects should go to people who would appreciate their significance. You remind me of her, Mrs. Patterson. Your strength, your dedication to helping others, your grace. Please, I'd be honored if you'd wear it." Gloria's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled as she fastened the locket around her neck. "Then I'll treasure it. Thank you." On the drive back to the estate, Simone was quiet, processing the afternoon. "Finally," she said, "that was incredibly kind of you. The locket, I mean. It clearly meant a lot to you." "It did," Julian agreed. "But its meaning grows when it's given to someone who embodies the same values. Your mother is a remarkable person, Simone. You're lucky to have her." "I know," Simone said softly. "And she's lucky to still be here, thanks to you." 6 weeks after the midnight request that changed everything, Gloria's transformation was remarkable. The combination of proper medication, regular doctor visits, and the security of knowing her medical needs were covered had given her a new lease on life. Dr. Foster was impressed at Gloria's follow-up appointment. "Your heart function has improved significantly," she told Gloria, reviewing the test results. "The medication is working exactly as we'd hoped. If you maintain this regimen and continue with moderate exercise and a healthy diet, there's no reason you can't live a full, active life." Gloria had indeed started volunteering at the Eastside Community Health Clinic 3 days a week. The clinic served low-income families, many without insurance, many in situations similar to what Gloria had faced. She worked alongside other volunteer nurses and doctors, providing basic care, health education, and compassionate support. "We had a young mother come in today," Gloria told Simone over dinner one evening at her apartment. 24 years old, 2 kids, working 2 jobs. She had an infection that needed antibiotics, but she didn't have money for the prescription. I was able to connect her with the medication assistance program. "How did that make you feel?" Simone asked. "Like my own suffering had purpose," Gloria said quietly. "I understand what these families are going through. I can look them in the eye and tell them honestly that I know their fear, and there is hope on the other side of it. Mr. Reed gave me that gift. He gave me the chance to take my pain and transform it into something useful." 2 days later, Julian surprised them both by showing up at the clinic unannounced. He'd called Simone that morning and asked for the address, saying only that he wanted to see Gloria's work. When he arrived, the clinic was busy, the waiting room full of families seeking care. Gloria was in the middle of taking a patient's blood pressure when the clinic director brought Julian back to the treatment area. Her face broke into a wide smile when she saw him. "Mr. Reed, what a wonderful surprise," she said, finishing with her patient and walking over. "Welcome to the East Side Community Health Clinic. I wanted to see where you've been spending your time," Julian said, looking around at the modest but clean facility. "Simone tells me you're making quite an impact here." "It's the other way around," Gloria corrected. "This place is making an impact on me. Come, let me show you around." As Gloria gave Julian a tour, explaining the clinic's mission, the challenges they faced with funding and supplies, Julian listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. Simone watched from a distance, seeing the passion in her mother's face as she talked about patient care, the importance of accessible healthcare, the dignity every person deserved regardless of their ability to pay. When the tour concluded, Julian asked to speak with the clinic director, a tired-looking but dedicated woman named Patricia Rhodes. They talked for nearly an hour in her cramped office. Simone waited outside, curious but not wanting to intrude. Finally, Julian emerged, Patricia following him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," Patricia was saying. "Thank you so much. This will change everything for us." After saying goodbye and promising to return, Julian, Simone, and Gloria left together. Outside in the parking lot, Gloria turned to Julian with questioning eyes. "What did you do?" she asked. "I've arranged for a significant donation to the clinic," Julian said simply. "Enough to cover their operating costs for the next 2 years, upgrade their equipment, and establish a medication assistance fund. Patricia will have the resources she needs to serve more families." Gloria's hand went to her locket, tears streaming down her face. "You keep giving and giving. How can I ever thank you enough?" "By continuing to do exactly what you're doing," Julian said. "You're changing lives, Mrs. Patterson. That's the best thank you I could ask for." That evening, as Julian drove Simone home, she was quiet, overwhelmed by the afternoon's events. "You're changing more than just my mother's life," she finally said. "You're changing this entire community." "That's the plan," Julian said. "I've spent years building wealth. Now I want to spend the rest of my life making sure that wealth does something meaningful. Your mother inspired that. Seeing her transform her own suffering into service for others, that's the kind of impact I want to make." Simone looked at him, really looked at him, and felt her heart shift in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. This wasn't just gratitude anymore. This was something deeper, something that went beyond the debt she owed him for her mother's life. "You're a good person, Julian Reed," she said softly, using his first name for the first time. He glanced at her, surprise flickering across his face at the informal address, then smiled. "So are you, Simone Patterson." 3 months after that midnight request, Simone and Julian had finished cataloguing the last of his grandmother's estate. The work had been thorough and meaningful, and Simone had learned more about Julian through his grandmother's belongings than through any direct conversation. She'd seen his childhood through old photographs, read his grandmother's journal entries about watching him grow into a compassionate young man, found letters where his grandmother praised his kindness and business acumen in equal measure. On the day they closed the final box and sealed the last archive, Julian asked Simone to meet him in his study that evening. She arrived to find him standing by the window, looking out at the manicured grounds, his expression thoughtful. "Simone, these past few months working with you have been valuable in ways I didn't anticipate," he began. "You've been professional, thoughtful, and incredibly competent. But more than that, you've helped me understand something important." He turned to face her. "When I helped your mother, I did it because I knew what it felt like to lose someone due to lack of resources. But watching your mother's recovery, seeing her work at the clinic, observing how she's turned her experience into service, it made me realize something. I've been successful in business, but I haven't been doing enough with that success to address the root problems that cause suffering like what your mother experienced." Simone listened, not sure where this was going. "I want to start a foundation," Julian continued. a charitable organization dedicated to helping families afford critical medical care. Not just medication, but treatments, procedures, ongoing care. I want to create a system where families don't have to choose between paying rent and buying medicine, where a mother's life isn't determined by the balance in her bank account. He walked to his desk and picked up a folder. I've been developing this plan for weeks. The foundation would accept applications from families, verify their medical needs and financial situations, and provide grants to cover their costs. We'd partner with hospitals, pharmacies, and doctors to get better rates and maximize our impact. We'd also provide financial counseling to help families navigate the medical system and access other resources. Julian handed her the folder. I want you to run it. Simone nearly dropped the folder. What? I want you to be the foundation's program director. You'd handle the application process, work with families, coordinate with medical providers, oversee the grants. You understand the need because you've lived it. You have the compassion to work with vulnerable families and the organizational skills I've seen over these past months. You're perfect for this role. Simone opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside was a detailed business plan, organizational structure, and a proposed salary that was triple what she'd been earning as a housekeeper. Julian, I don't have experience running a foundation. I've never done anything like this. Neither have I, Julian said. But I have business expertise, and you have first-hand understanding of the people we'll serve. Together, we can make this work. I'll handle the financial side, the legal structure, the partnerships with institutions. You'll handle the human side, the connection with families, the direct impact. We'll hire a small staff to support the work, but you'd be the heart of the operation. Could you take a leap of faith and accept a life-changing opportunity? Drop a comment about the biggest risk you've ever taken, and don't forget to subscribe to see what Simone decides. Simone sat down, overwhelmed. This is incredible. The salary alone would change my life completely. But more than that, this work, helping families the way you helped my mother, that would be meaningful beyond anything I've ever done. So you'll do it? Julian asked, hope in his voice. Simone thought about her mother's words months ago. Pride doesn't keep people alive. Gratitude and grace do. She thought about all the families who were struggling right now the way they had struggled, all the mothers rationing medication, all the children watching their parents suffer. Yes, she said firmly. Yes, I'll do it. I'd be honored to run your foundation. Julian's face broke into a genuine smile. Excellent. We'll start immediately. I've already consulted with attorneys to begin the legal setup. We should be operational within 6 weeks. Over the next month and a half, Simone threw herself into the work. She attended meetings with lawyers, learned about non-profit regulations, helped develop application forms and verification procedures, interviewed potential staff members, and worked with Julian to establish partnerships with medical institutions. Gloria was thrilled about the foundation, offering her own insights from her nursing experience about what families needed most. Mrs. Hayes, who'd watched the whole journey unfold, became an unofficial mentor, teaching Simone about managing people and navigating the world of philanthropy. The foundation was named Second Chance Medical Fund, a name Simone suggested that Julian immediately loved. Their mission statement was simple: ensuring that financial circumstances never stand between a person and their chance to live. On the day they officially launched, Julian and Simone stood in their new office space, a modest but professional suite in downtown. The walls were painted in calming blues, comfortable chairs filled the waiting area, and a small staff was ready to begin accepting applications. Ready to change some lives? Julian asked, looking at Simone with an expression she couldn't quite read. More ready than I've ever been for anything, Simone replied. The foundation exceeded every expectation. Within the first month, they received over 300 applications from desperate families. Simone read each one personally, her heart breaking and healing in equal measure with every story. A father with cancer who couldn't afford chemotherapy. A child needing surgery. An elderly man whose diabetes medication cost more than his social security check. They approved 30 grants that first month, carefully selecting cases where their intervention would make the most critical difference. Simone personally called each family to deliver the news, And those phone calls became the best part of her day. Mrs. Henderson? This is Simone Patterson from Second Chance Medical Fund. I'm calling about your application for your husband's dialysis treatment. I'm pleased to tell you that your grant has been approved. We'll be covering the full cost of his treatments for the next 6 months. The sound of Mrs. Henderson's sob of relief and gratitude made Simone's eyes water. This was why she was doing this work. She and Julian fell into an easy partnership. They met every morning to review applications, discuss strategy, and plan for the foundation's growth. Their working relationship was professional but warm, marked by mutual respect and shared purpose. But something was shifting, at least for Simone. She found herself looking forward to their morning meetings a little too much. She noticed when Julian loosened his tie in the afternoon, the way he ran his hand through his hair when he was thinking, his rare but genuine smiles when they approved another grant. She tried to ignore these feelings. Julian was her employer, her benefactor, the person who saved her mother's life. Developing romantic feelings for him was inappropriate, unprofessional, and complicated. But feelings don't follow logic. One evening, 6 months after the foundation's launch, they were working late preparing for a big fundraising event. The office was quiet, everyone else gone home. Simone was at her desk reviewing the event program when Julian appeared with 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use this," he said, setting 1 cup on her desk. "You're a lifesaver," Simone said, taking a grateful sip. "This program needs to be perfect. We're hoping to raise enough at this event to double our monthly grants." Julian sat in the chair across from her desk, something he rarely did. Usually he stayed in his own office or stood when they talked. "Simone, can I ask you something personal?" She looked up, surprised. "Of course. Are you happy? I mean, with this work, with how your life has changed over the past months. Are you happy?" The question caught her off guard. "I'm happier than I've ever been. This work is meaningful in ways I never imagined. Helping these families, seeing their relief when we approve their grants, knowing we're making a real difference. It's everything I didn't know I wanted." "Good," Julian said softly. "That's good. Because you've changed my life too, Simone. Not just my work life, but everything. You've shown me what it means to lead with compassion, to connect with people authentically, to find purpose beyond profit." Simone's heart began to race. There was something in his tone, in the way he was looking at her, that felt different from their usual conversations. Julian took a breath, as if gathering courage. "I need to tell you something, and I'm afraid of how you might react. These past months, working with you, getting to know you, seeing your strength and compassion and dedication, I've developed feelings that go beyond professional respect." He met her eyes directly. "I've fallen for you, Simone. I'm in love with you. I know that's complicated. I know I'm your employer, that I helped your mother, that there's an imbalance there that makes this inappropriate. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way." Simone's breath caught. For a moment, she couldn't speak, couldn't process what she was hearing. "You don't have to say anything," Julian continued quickly. "And please know that this doesn't change anything about your position here or the foundation. If you don't feel the same way, we'll continue working together as we have been. But I needed to be honest with you." "Julian," Simone finally found her voice. "I feel the same way. I've been trying so hard not to, trying to convince myself it was just gratitude or admiration, but it's more than that. I'm in love with you too." Relief and joy flooded Julian's face. "You are?" "Yes. But I'm scared. We come from such different worlds. You're a billionaire, and I'm just a girl from the East Side who cleaned houses 6 months ago. People will say I'm with you because of what you did for my mother, because of this job, because of money." Julian stood and moved around the desk, taking her hands and gently pulling her to her feet. "Do you care what people think?" "I care what you think," Simone said. "I care about protecting what we've built with the foundation. I don't want people to dismiss our work because they think there's something inappropriate between us." "Then we'll be transparent," Julian said. "We'll be honest about our relationship while maintaining the highest professional standards with the foundation. We'll have oversight, accountability, all the structures needed to ensure integrity." But Simone, I don't want to let you go because I'm afraid of what people might say. Do you? Simone thought about her mother's words again, about accepting good things with gratitude and grace. She thought about how Julian had never once made her feel less than equal, how he respected her opinions, valued her insights, and treated her as a true partner in their work. No, she said firmly. I don't want to let you go either. Julian smiled, and slowly, carefully, he leaned in and kissed her. It was gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Simone laughed softly. My mother is going to lose her mind when I tell her. In a good way? Julian asked. In the best way, Simone assured him. She's been dropping hints about you for months. She sees how you look at me. How do I look at you? Like I'm the most important person in the room, Simone said softly. Even when the room is full of billionaires and important people, you look at me that way. That's because you are the most important person in any room you're in, Julian said simply. At least to me. 3 months after their relationship began, the Second Chance Medical Fund held its first major public event. The fundraising gala took place at an elegant hotel downtown, attended by over 200 donors, community leaders, and medical professionals. Simone wore a deep blue dress that Gloria had helped her choose, simple but elegant. She felt nervous about the evening ahead. This was the first time she'd be speaking publicly as the foundation's director, and their relationship was now known to their board and major donors. Julian found her backstage before the program began. You're going to be amazing, he said, squeezing her hand. I'm terrified, she admitted. What if I mess up my speech? Then you'll be human, and everyone will relate to you even more. Simone, these people aren't here because they expect perfection. They're here because they believe in what we're doing. Just speak from your heart. The evening began with a reception where donors mingled and learned about the foundation's work. Display boards showed statistics about how many families they'd helped, quotes from grateful recipients, and information about ongoing needs. Gloria attended, looking radiant in a simple black dress, the locket from Julian's grandmother around her neck. She'd become something of a symbol for the foundation, the living proof of what proper medical care could accomplish. When it was time for the program, Julian gave the opening remarks. He spoke about his mother, about the promise he'd made to help others, about meeting Simone and Gloria and how they'd inspired the foundation's creation. His speech was heartfelt and moving, and Simone felt tears prick her eyes listening to him. Then it was her turn. Simone walked to the podium, looked out at the crowd of well-dressed donors, and took a breath. 6 months ago, I was a housemaid working at Mr. Reed's estate, she began. I made barely enough to cover rent and groceries, and my mother was dying because she couldn't afford her heart medication. I remember standing outside his study at midnight, terrified to ask for help but more terrified of losing my mother. I knocked on that door not knowing if I'd be turned away, pitied, or ignored. The room was silent, everyone listening intently. Instead, Julian Reed didn't hesitate. He said of course, got his jacket, and drove me to the hospital. He bought my mother's medication without a single question about repayment. He set up a medical trust to ensure she'd never face that crisis again. And then he did something even more remarkable. He invited me to help him build something that could offer the same chance to other families. Simone gestured to the display boards. Every number you see here represents a family. A mother who can now afford her cancer treatment. A father whose diabetes is being managed. A child who received the surgery she needed. These aren't statistics to us. They're people whose lives have been changed because someone believed they deserved a chance. She paused, letting her words settle. When I asked Julian why he was helping my mother, he told me about losing his own mother to preventable illness. He'd made a promise to himself that he'd help others in the same situation. Tonight, I'm asking each of you to make a similar promise. Promise that you won't look away from suffering when you have the means to address it. Promise that you'll recognize the humanity in every person who needs help. Promise that you'll be the person who says of course when someone desperately needs support. The room erupted in applause. Simone stepped back from the podium, her heart pounding, and found Julian waiting in the wings with a proud smile. That was perfect, he said. The evening raised over $800,000 for the foundation, far exceeding their goal. As the event wound down, Simone, Julian, and Gloria stood together watching donors sign commitment cards and pledge ongoing support. "You two have built something beautiful," Gloria said, her arm around Simone's waist. "Not just this foundation, but what you have together. I'm so proud of you both." Mrs. Hayes appeared beside them, having attended the gala at Julian's invitation. "That young man's grandmother would be so proud of him," she said. "And Simone, dear, you were magnificent tonight. Absolutely magnificent." As they left the event that evening, Julian took Simone's hand. "There's something I want to show you," he said. He drove them not back to the estate, but to a building downtown that Simone didn't recognize. It was dark, and the building was closed, but Julian had keys. He led her inside to an empty suite of offices, much larger than their current foundation space. "This is our new headquarters," Julian said. "I signed the lease today. We're outgrowing our current space, and this building will give us room to expand. More staff, more programs, more families helped." Simone walked through the empty rooms, imagining them filled with people, with purpose, with the work that had become her passion. "It's perfect," she said. "There's one more thing," Julian said, leading her to the largest office, corner windows overlooking the city. "This is your office. You're the director, you should have the best space." Simone turned to him, overwhelmed. 6 months ago, she'd been desperate and afraid, knocking on his door at midnight. Now she stood in her own corner office, director of a foundation changing lives, in a relationship with a man who saw her as an equal partner. "How is this my life?" she whispered. Julian pulled her close. "Because you were brave enough to ask for help when you needed it. Because you accepted support with grace instead of refusing it out of pride. Because you took the opportunity one offered and turned it into something that impacts hundreds of families. This is your life because you earned it, Simone." She kissed him, standing in that empty office full of future possibility, and felt truly, completely happy. 6 months later, the Second Chance Medical Fund had helped over 200 families. They'd expanded their staff to 8 people, moved into the new headquarters, and established partnerships with 20 hospitals and 50 pharmacies across the region. Gloria continued volunteering at the Eastside Community Health Clinic, but now she also spoke at foundation events, sharing her story and advocating for accessible healthcare. She'd become a powerful voice for medical equity, respected by doctors, policymakers, and patient advocates alike. Simone had grown into her role as director with confidence and skill. She developed systems for evaluating applications, created a mentorship program connecting grant recipients with healthcare navigators, and launched an educational initiative teaching financial literacy and medical advocacy. She and Julian had moved into a house together, a compromise between his estate and her mother's neighborhood. It was a beautiful place with enough room for family visits and foundation events, but not so ostentatious that Simone felt uncomfortable. One evening, Julian asked Simone to meet him in his study, the same room where she'd made her desperate request nearly a year ago. She found him standing by his desk, looking nervous in a way she rarely saw. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Everything is perfect," Julian said. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you." He gestured to the room. "This is where it all started. Where you knocked on my door at midnight, terrified and desperate, asking me to help save your mother. Do you remember?" "I'll never forget that night," Simone said. "I was so scared. I thought you might say no, might send me away. I almost didn't knock." "I'm so glad you did," Julian said. "Because that moment changed my entire life. You changed my life, Simone. You showed me what it means to be truly brave. To set aside pride and ask for help when someone you love needs it. To accept generosity with grace. To transform your own suffering into service for others." He moved closer to her. "This past year with you has been the best of my life. Building the foundation together, falling in love with you, watching you become this incredible advocate for families in crisis. I wake up every day grateful that you knocked on this door." Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Simone's breath caught. "Simone Patterson, I don't want to spend another day without you as my partner in every sense of the word. Will you marry me?" He opened the box to reveal a beautiful but not ostentatious ring, A single diamond on a simple band, elegant and understated. Simone's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Yes, Julian, of course I'll marry you. He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and Simone felt the same sense of rightness she'd felt that night months ago when she'd accepted his help with gratitude instead of refusing it out of pride. My mother is going to cry for a week, Simone said, laughing through her tears. Actually, I already asked her permission, Julian admitted. Last week, I took her to lunch and told her my intentions. She said, and I quote, "About time you asked. That girl has been in love with you since you bought those medications at midnight." Simone laughed. She's not wrong. They called Gloria immediately, and true to prediction, she cried tears of joy. Mrs. Hayes was next, and her excited response made them both smile. Over the next week, they shared their news with the foundation staff, their board members, and their closest friends. The wedding was planned for 6 months later, a simple but elegant ceremony at the estate where Simone had once worked as a maid. The full-circle nature of it felt right. On their wedding day, as Simone walked down the aisle toward Julian, she saw Gloria in the front row, healthy and radiant, tears of joy streaming down her face. She saw Mrs. Hayes beaming with pride. She saw the foundation staff who'd become like family. She saw faces of families they'd helped, people who'd traveled to attend because Simone and Julian's work had changed their lives. During the ceremony, Julian's vows included a promise that brought everyone to tears. I promise to continue building a life with you that reflects the values that brought us together. Compassion, service, and the belief that everyone deserves a chance to thrive. I promise to always answer when someone knocks on the door asking for help. And I promise to love you with the same certainty I felt that midnight when I said of course to helping your mother. Simone's vows were equally moving. I promise to never forget where we started. To remember that asking for help isn't weakness, it's trust. To accept your love and support the way I accepted your help that night, with gratitude and grace. And I promise to spend our life together helping others find the same hope you gave my mother and me. At the reception, Gloria gave a toast that had everyone reaching for tissues. A year ago, my daughter knocked on a door at midnight, terrified but brave, asking for help that saved my life. Tonight, I watched her marry the man who didn't hesitate to say yes. Julian gave us more than money or medication. He gave us hope. And together, my daughter and her husband are now giving that same hope to hundreds of families. I couldn't be prouder of them both. As the evening wound down, Simone and Julian slipped away from the celebration to walk through the estate gardens. The same grounds where she'd once cleaned as a maid, where she'd worried about paying rent and affording her mother's medication, where she'd lived in constant financial anxiety. Do you ever think about how different things might be if you hadn't helped that night? Simone asked. All the time, Julian admitted. You and your mother might have found another way. You're both incredibly strong. But I'm grateful every day that I got to be part of your story. You didn't just become part of my story, Simone corrected. You helped me write an entirely new one. And now we're writing it together. They stood in the garden as night fell, the lights from the reception glowing warm behind them. The Second Chance Medical Fund would open again on Monday, and there would be more families to help, more lives to change, more midnight requests from people who needed hope. But tonight was about celebrating the journey that had brought them here. From that desperate knock on a study door to this moment of complete happiness and partnership. Ready to go back to our guests? Julian asked. Ready for everything, Simone said, taking his hand. As long as we're together. They walked back toward the light and music, toward the celebration of their beginning, toward a future full of purpose and love and the continued work of giving others the same chance they'd been given. The maid had asked if he could buy medicine for her ill mother. The billionaire had appeared at midnight and said yes. And from that moment of grace and generosity, both their lives had been forever changed.